doing on this wonderful day? It is freezing. Granted, I'm in a t-shirt right now, so how dare I say that? But I'm in a warm room. It has been a very cold morning. I have been out and about in Brunswick Heads, the best town in Australia, bar none, if you ask me. I've been there since 6 o'clock this morning. I don't think I came home until almost 9 o'clock. I was working like a busy beaver. And then I was just randomly bumping into locals and having chats, and it was a wonderful morning and thoroughly enjoyed my morning. And there is no doubt in my mind that when you connect with people in your community, when you connect socially, it is so good for your mental health. When you can love where you live, I think, and I write about this, and for those of you that don't know, you know that, well, for those of you that don't know, you know that. For those of you that don't know, the book Your Exceptional Life has come out, been out for 2 or 3 weeks. But I write this in a book, and I think it's probably one of, I almost want to say the most, I think one of the most important decisions you can ever make in your life is where you live. And in particular, loving where you live. Pop in the comments, do you love where you live? Say hello, tell me where you are, tell me who you are, where you're from. Because sometimes in the software that I use called Restream, it just comes up as Facebook user. But say hello if you're here. And my good mate Damian Kristof, who I'll talk about in a moment, he loves a bit of social connection on social media. He likes to know that when people are watching a Facebook Live that people come in and say hello, because it's the closest we can get to feeling like we're in real life. And recently on an episode of 100 Not Out, Damian, who lives in Melbourne, was sharing the troubles of being in lockdown 4.0. G'day, Pete. How are you in cold, freezing Canberra? Hope you're well. Damo was sharing his experiences from locked down Melbourne. And it really turned into a mental health masterclass, maybe a mental health mini class. But it was incredibly powerful because it was a really vulnerable conversation. We had a lot of listeners going, hope Damo's okay, don't normally seem like this. So it was the Damo that was genuinely going through tough times, and we recorded those experiences. But it also turned into a conversation of, despite the challenges of what Damian was going through, he couldn't work and obviously derived a lot of value from that. He loves playing golf, couldn't go out and play on the golf course. He loved to socially engage with people. That was not so easy, and all the rest of it. It was really, it was a great insight as to actually, well, how do you cultivate strong mental health when you are going through some really difficult times? And so that was the most recent episode of 100 Not Out. I'm pretty sure it would have been the one that came out on Monday. And if you have been experiencing, really big challenges with your mental health, I would highly recommend you have a listen to that conversation, because it was very raw. And for some people, it was really quite hard to listen to because it was so raw, particularly people that know Damian, feel like, best thing about podcasts is you really do feel like you know the people when you listen to them every week. And to a large extent, you do. Like, those people. Some of our listeners know more about us than our family members and our friends. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Hey, good morning, Game Changer. Hope you're well. Pete Lennon, I'm imagining you sitting in a bath right now. So thanks for the engagement. Say hello if you come in. It's always nice to know there's real people here. We just get to see little stats, but we don't get to see the names unless you put a chat in there. So nice to know there's people in here on this tremendous Thursday. So Damo was really vulnerable, and, he spoke about the ingredients for his mental wellness, the ingredients of doing work that you love and being around good people and moving regularly. And, for me, I had that great reminder this morning of just loving where you live. And it may have been a conversation or a topic that came up in this mental health masterclass episode of 100 Not Out. It's probably episode 428 or 429, but it's the most recent one. And it is one of the toughest decisions that you will ever make is where you live. Because it impacts so many things. It can impact your work. It can impact your proximity to your family. It can, if you have children, where they go to school. Your access to food. The socioeconomics of the community, the culture. Are they arts? Are they science? What type of sports do they play? It's so big. But I'm a really big believer that having what COVID really taught us, and I do a lot of work with a real estate education firm called Positive Real Estate. And, one of the big lessons that they talk about with their clients is one of the biggest lessons of COVID has been, one, do we love we've got three places: first place, second place, third place. So our first place is our home. Do we actually love the bricks and mortar that we live in? Because we were spending so much more time at home. If we really didn't like it, it was having an impact on our mental health. And that could be just the layout of the home, the floor plan of the home, but also on a deeper level, the people in the home. So, the sad news is we know a lot of terrible relationships that went even more sideways during the height of COVID, whether it's domestic violence and things of that nature, toxic relationships, whether it's flatmates, housemates, de facto relationships, parents and children. If they didn't have the skills to work through them, it became a really big challenge on mental health. So first place is the home. Second place is, the backyard and just, your area. A lot of people don't have backyards, particularly if they're living in apartments. They're like trapped in this shoebox, and it was hard to get, decent fresh air and just to be able to sit in your backyard and read a book, or, particularly wealthier people that had, swimming pool or a tennis court or a beautiful backyard or a garden that they could really get stuck into, or, if they had the funds to renovate and so on, they were able to be active and do things in their second place. And then the third place is your community. And were you able to engage in your community? So if you're going to go for an hour walk, have you got nice amenities to walk around? If you were going to go and get your takeaway coffee, was it in a beautiful, neighborhood? So first place, second place, third place is a really big ingredient to your mental wellness. And so I want you to consider, what is your own mental health masterclass? Like, how do you go about navigating your own mental wellness? For me, I'm my kind of hack, so to speak, is if you can master your own exceptional life blueprint, if you can do what you love and love what you do in your waking hours, if you can move regularly and experience the vitality of regular movement, if you can cultivate a great peer group and feel that connection of having good friends and loving where you live. Again, community derives from the word communitas, which means public spirit. If you can feel that public spirit of your local community, you're likely to have a really good level of mental wellness. If you're eating great food, you're going to feel the energy rather than the disease of toxic nutrition. If you've got great family relationships, you do genuinely feel loved and supported rather than isolated and bitter. If you've got great hobbies and you've got a great avenue to wealth where you really are inspired and pulled to learn, to read books. Audiobook of Your Exceptional Life is out right now. Came out a couple of days ago. I haven't really announced it yet, but if there's things you really want to learn, you want to listen to an audiobook, you want to read a book, you want to watch this cool movie, you want to watch a documentary, you want to do an online program, you want to learn how to crochet or quilt or knit or whatever it is that you want to do. Like, that's great for your mental health. If you're spending less than you earn and then you're creating financial independence on a daily basis, that is so good for your self-esteem, self-confidence, future-based thinking. And then if you derive a really strong spiritual awareness of the world, and you can sense that there are no mistakes in the world, even what's going on right now is not a mistake. If you can cultivate that belief, it's not good, bad, right, wrong, love, and hate, and you can see all the gray, or if we say it another way, all the 64 million colors in the world, and see it for what it is, rather than attaching yourself to one side, good, bad, right, wrong, then you can live with this awareness that your mental health is not an issue. You'll have times where you feel despondent, where you feel down, where you feel elated, where you feel manic, where you feel angry, where you feel sad, where you feel happy, where you feel enraged, where you feel fulfilled, where you feel joyous, where you feel, just a little bit flat. That's life. That doesn't mean you've got poor mental health. When you can cultivate exceptional in each area of life and know that they are fleeting, there are times when exceptional goes to mediocre and vice versa and the rest. But when you can cultivate that, then your mental health is never something that you have to, it never becomes a chronic problem. There are times where it's challenged, again, particularly if you're in Melbourne and you go into snap lockdowns and you've really got to work harder on your mental fitness. But I really want you to consider a framework for your own mental wellness. And whether it's my exceptional life blueprint, great, but it might be any other framework or model you've come across that you can live by, particularly when times get tough. particularly when times get tough. Couple of questions here. Can't always let be where you want for various reasons. So I worry about your quality of mental health being determined by external things like where you live. What say you, MP? Very good point. This is one of those things where it might be a moment in time. It could be years in time. It could be 7 years. It could be 10 years. So they could be chapters. So sometimes I think it's important, and Pete, you and I have had a couple of chats about this particularly, but sometimes that it's really important to settle for, I don't want to say for mediocrity, but sometimes it's really important to know when you need to go into survival mode and not thrival mode. So when you're grieving, as an example, it's not a time to really, really, really focus on thrival. Like, there are times when you really need to feel the depths of despair and grief and despondency. My sister yesterday just had a baby. Beautiful Jack came into the world. My beautiful sister Georgia. Actually, I don't know if I can say that. Is it on social? Sorry, Georgia. Whoops. Anyway, I don't know. But anyway, I don't know if it's been announced, but this is live. Can't take that back. Anyway, and in every single labor, there is a crisis of confidence that the mother has. And it's normally between 7 and 8 centimeters. And again, having had 4 children myself and been there for every birth and been right with Sarah at every stage, I know when it's coming, and I don't worry when it comes, because it's just a natural part of the whole process. And every mother that has ever given birth has gone through a crisis of confidence in the labor, and it's around 7 to 8 centimeters, and it's just the way it is. And there are this type of universal experience is, for me, a part of also where we live. We don't always love where we live, and it may be for a period of time. It could be for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. What I would always consider is there a time when we are wise to pull the trigger and actually make a shift? Now, for some, there isn't, because we do know that home is where the heart is. Okay, so we've got to be really clear on that. What is so important is for us to recognize is, does our community allow us to fully express our potential? And if you don't feel, and I call it in the book, I'd love to actually just quote from it if I could find it easily enough, because I don't ever want to say this flippantly, and I actually go a little bit, maybe even arguably, over the top. I found it great. I don't want to make this to be flippant. So I'm actually just going to read from here, because I think this is the best way to say it. All right, so I've said here, resist the resistance. You might be reading this and recognize you don't truly connect with your community. You don't have many or any close friends nearby. You're not drawn to any meeting places, sporting or special interest groups, and you lack any local patriotism or pride for the area you live in. If this is you, you have 2 options. 1, take a good hard look at yourself. If you are going to uproot your entire life, you have to, and that's the important thing, your entire life. It's not a small decision. You have to truly ask yourself if the problem is you or your community. If you are not connecting with people, is it because you're not making the effort? Will you be taking the same social baggage with you to a new community? Before you commit to leaving, it's wise to give your community every opportunity to connect. So, and I find this living up in Byron, a lot of people think that it's just like this magic oasis of perfection. It's definitely not, but I never complain about it, because the one time I did at a school reunion, I got howled down for, how dare I talk about the quality of the roads in the Byron Shire. So be really clear about this. It's uprooting your entire life. So it's really important to recognize the pros of living where you live now and not get too hung up on the cons. You don't necessarily leave because of the cons, put it that way. The second option is leave town for a community you love to live in. If you have engaged fully in your community and you know it's time to leave, you are in for a wild ride. Starting over is not easy, and it's not something I recommend unless you have a genuine pull to move. But if you are prepared for the lows of the roller coaster as well as the highs, moving to a community where you love to live just may be the wisest decision you ever make in life. And I think it's really important that we consider that this is not a flippant thing, and mental health is not a flippant thing as well. That's why I really, I tie these together, because our community is a really strong magnifier of our mental health. If you live in a community that just agrees with every mediocre feeling and statement that you have and doesn't challenge you to be a better version or the best version of you, then you really want to consider that. If mediocrity is the culture of your community, then there might be a decision to make. But if simplicity and living a wonderfully simple life where you stop in the road and talk to strangers who are friends you haven't met yet, and you can have a coffee and say hello to your barista, and you can go out for a counter meal with friends, and you can knock on your next door neighbor and ask for a teaspoon or a cup of sugar or some salt or some yeast or an apple or a banana, whatever it is. If you can have this simple life in your community and you can walk down the road and feel safe and feel joyous and feel gratitude, then you don't need to move anywhere. You experience the problems and challenges of life in that community. But if you feel, as particularly Sarah and I did when we left South Gippsland, that you've given your heart and soul to a community for a period of time, and you know that there is more for you in life, and there is a yearning, a calling, a magnetism, a pulling rather than a pushing out of, but a pulling into, then it might be wise to follow that as well. So, but there's no nirvana, folks. There is no oasis of perfection. You've got to go into any new community with your eyes wide open, particularly to the downside as much as the upside. So I encourage you all, folks, to really just define, create your mental health masterclass, whatever it is for you. For every one of us, it is different. I mean, one of mine is going to a cafe and being with humanity, with the community. I just love it. I bumped into a friend this morning. I was at the cafe for 2.5 hours this morning, and at 8:15, bumped into a school dad I've known for years, and we just got talking. And instead of just going to the car, I said, let's do a lap of the river. There's 2 footbridges on the Brunswick River, and we just walked along one and did a lap and walked down the other and then back to the car, and then he just lived down the road, and it was another 15 minutes of chatting, and it was like, oh, I just love this stuff. Love it. So good for mental health, mental wellness. So really, really important, guys. Folks, really appreciate your support of the book. Just put my order in for another 1,500 copies to be printed yesterday, because I'm quickly running out of books. I've only got about 20 books left in my garage or in my office, whatever. So there'll be a slight delay in a few days' time when people start ordering the books. But I think in about a week or so, I'll have another garage full of books, which is very exciting. So I really appreciate your support. The audiobook has just come out. If you get my emails, I will be emailing everyone about that over the next day or so. If you don't get emails and you want an email every now and again from me, just go to marcuspearce.com.au, pop in your name and email address, and we'll sort you out there. But yeah, the book is now essentially wherever you want it. I can sign it and give you a better quality version of the book, like better paper, nicer cover, if you book it through the website. If you get points or loyalty through Booktopia or Amazon or whatever, you can do that. Audiobooks now out, Audible and Apple Books. I have Obama's A Promised Land right over there in hardcover, but I like an author reading their own audiobook, and Obama has narrated his own audiobook. I narrated my own audiobook. I think it's very important, particularly for a nonfiction, and A Promised Land is a great audiobook. And then it makes it easy just to go back to the hardcover book and you kind of read it like doubly as quick. It's really nice. So audiobooks, if you're up for it, is available, and ebook has been out for some time as well. So there you have it, folks. Appreciate your support as always. Really grateful. If you've got the book already, hope you're enjoying it. Good on you, Sharon. Thanks for your support. Really appreciate that. I'll get that out to you today. I love my little post office runs. Again, I love supporting local businesses. Going down to Vinny at the Brunswick Heads post office and get them all down. International best-selling author. Well, what I have realized, Pete, is it does cost a little bit more money to post internationally. I've still got to work out. It's one of those other things. And Pete, thank you the other day for your support in a couple of adjustments I made with the book ordering. But I've now got to adjust it so that when people order from other countries, they pay accordingly from a delivery perspective. So that's okay. Best-selling author, I tell you what, it is something I have. You only have to sell 3,000 books in Australia to become a national bestseller. I do think we have 25 million people in our country. It should be 10,000 as far as I'm concerned. So anyway, that's just me on my little high horse rant. Folks, have a wonderful day, whatever you're up to. Master your mental health. It is a bit of a buzz term these days, mental health. I think it's been something that has been a part of the human condition ever since we've been alive, our mental health. and it's really emotional and spiritual health. Mental, when we use it in typical terms, is our learning abilities. How fast can we read? What's our retention like? Can we comprehend easily enough and all the rest of it? But Pete, we'll be at 3,000 in no time. Don't you worry about that. But not for the wank factor of a national bestseller, just for the impact on humanity. I'm loving your feedback, folks. If you're reading it and you're like learning stuff, like send me DMs on social, send me an email, let me know in any way. I love to know how you're going with it. I'm a massive bookworm. I love the power of a book. My great mate, Jason Witten, who's in the book in the wealth section, calls books the great 1%ers. Like, you can just read books and they just add 1% to your life. And, you end up reading 100 books and you are just 100% better than you were before you read the first book. And it's true, like just the good old, if you just get one thing out of it, it's really good. So if you don't really want to read the book, but you just like this stuff, I am about to go down Media Street and start to be interviewed on a lot of podcasts. So I'm really looking forward to talking about the book with others, having a two-way conversation. I love doing these lives, but I really do love two-way conversations about the book as well. So that's always another option. As I said, consume it however you want to. I just really hope that it helps you feel like the rest of your life can and will be the best of your life. All right, folks, let's make it a kick-ass Thursday. Have a wonderful day, and all being well, I'll drop back in tomorrow.